Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody, to another showing of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host today, Ashley Perrien, and my co-host this week,
Don Baker. Hello.
And guest, Mark Loewe. You have been a longtime member of the ACA.
Yes, sir.
But have been absent for quite a while now. It's been about 2 years or so?
3.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been posted up in Dallas, and now I've been posted back down here in Austin.
Okay. Well, excellent to have you back. Thank you very much for coming down. Again, welcome everybody. This is another showing. We are live today. It is, April 24th, and we're being sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Crescent City Beignets on 6th Street, a couple blocks west of Lamar. Those start at 11:30 and go until about 2 o'clock. It's open to any atheist-friendly people. It's very open and informal. You don't have to be a member of the group or anything like that to come down and meet us and have some donuts and coffee. It's a very open meeting. Like I say, more than welcome to come down there. That's every Sunday at Crescent City Beignets at 11:30. Save the third Sunday of the month when we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. I don't know if we have a speaker lined up.
No, we don't.
Okay, so for the May lecture, we do not have anybody lined up for that yet.
That's right.
Okay, but that is we do have a meeting there, even if we do not have a speaker lined up. So that is the third Sunday of the month at 12:30 on 9th and Guadalupe, the Austin History Center. Our other regular meetings that we have, on Monday nights we have Godless Gamers. On Thursday night we have Atheist Happy Hour at Antonio's Tex-Mex. And every other Saturday, we have an internet audio show. You can find out all of this and more of what we do at atheist-community.org. If you click on our calendar page there, it'll have all the details of all the meetings. Okay, a couple other announcements of upcoming items that ACA members and others should be aware of. ACA is having elections for new board members coming up on May 1st. Now, that is next weekend, isn't it? No. Yes. Perhaps?
Yes, next weekend.
It's next Sunday, which is May 1st. It's at Joy East, I believe it is, which is down on Old Torf, I believe. Old Torf,
it's Riverside.
Riverside and Pleasant Valley, I think?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. Riverside and Pleasant Valley. I think that's at 11:30 next week, next Sunday, May 1st. If you're an ACA member, you are more than welcome to please come down there and have your voice be heard on who should be the leadership of the ACA for the next year. And we're also voting on some changes to the Constitution and the bylaws, so it's going to be a big, fun-filled day. Please come down there and try and join us. That's at 11:30, May 1st, next Sunday. Be there. All right, I believe that is it. Okay, one more quick thing also. I keep forgetting to mention this, actually. There is the National Day of Prayer coming up, which everyone should be hearing about. This is on Thursday, May 5th. We are going to have a counter rally for the National Day of Prayer. Now, here is our announcement that we have, and I shall read some of it. The National Day of Prayer is a blatant and obvious violation of the separation of church and state, and we need for everyone who can possibly attend to be there to help express our opposition to the government's making any official proclamation in support of religious favoritism. Now, an important thing that the government is often doing is they're saying, okay, we can't establish a religion, which means that we can't promote, let's say, the Baptist form of Christianity. But as long as we don't promote a religion, then we're okay. So if we just say Christianity in general, well, there are lots of different kinds of Christianity out there. Therefore, it's okay if we promote that one over any others. So we've got some issues with government-sponsored prayer and government telling people that, look, you should be praying for our country's problems and such. We think there are better solutions to things, and this isn't really the government's business to say that you should be praying or how you should be praying or when. If you want to do something like that, that is your right to do it as much as you want, as often as you want. But the government getting in there saying, we are going to promote you doing this, I don't think that's their place. So anyway, National Day of Prayer is Thursday, May 5th. We are going to be there between noon and 1 p.m. on the Texas State Capitol on the south side of the building. So, again, anyone who feels that it's an important thing, please try and show up for that and show your support. We need the numbers out there.
I'd be happy to support a National Day Off prayer.
Off prayer?
True. We could just add an extra letter, and I don't have a big problem with it. So perhaps the next day, we'll say, oops, we had a problem. It was a misspelling in the
We have some free thinkers groups doing various sort of counter things to it, right? We have the National Day of Reason being promoted as a antidote to this, right?
Are those, do you know what kind of groups are promoting those? I haven't heard anything.
I don't know of anything in Austin. I think we would be the ones to be doing that in Austin, but
it would be nice.
But we are going to go out and at least raise the issue and let people know that this is illegal. Basically, it's that simple.
Exactly. All right. Again, welcome everybody. It's another showing of the Atheist Experience, and we're live today. It's April 24th. We're going to be opening up the phone calls. We're going to be opening up the phone for phone callers relatively soon. First, I believe that we are going to go to Mark Loewe. Find out one or two quick things from you.
Yeah, I'd like to present a couple of simple science questions to the audience, and callers can think about them and call in with your answers. So the first one, if you're ready in the control room, is from the 5th grade Texas tax test from 2 years ago. And there you see it. It reads, which two planets are closest to Earth? Now, this test was given in the spring of 2003 in April, I think, or maybe early May. And there you have it. Which two planets are closest to Earth? And then the possible answers there are Mercury and Saturn, Mars and Jupiter, Mercury and Venus, or Venus and Mars. So feel free to call in and suggest your answers, and we'll see what happens. And then there's another question, which is a little more complicated, from the 11th grade tax test from 2 years ago, having to do with the amount of force that a frog exerts on the ground when it jumps. So let's see if we can bring that one up. There we have it. A frog of mass ½ kilogram jumps with an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared. What is the force the frog exerts on the ground when jumping? And there you have the 4 possible answers. 2 newtons, 8 newtons, rather 0.2 newtons, 0.8 newtons, 1.5 newtons, or 6.0 newtons. Now this particular problem has been edited slightly from the actual question on the 11th grade science test. But essentially all 11th graders were supposed to know the answer, were supposed to be familiar with this material. So if you have a suggested answer, please call in and we'll see how we do.
Okay. And again, we will be putting up, actually we can go ahead and put up the phone number now and try and get some callers coming in on that. And there we go. All right, so we can put the phone number up. When we get some callers, we'll go ahead and find out what they have to those relatively simple questions. Again, this is high school physics.
Dig through my physics to remember some of those formulas.
Yeah, some of it, I think I more or less figure them out, though.
Well, there's a range, 5th grade to 11th grade.
Yeah.
So, and the second one actually.
And then when you get old enough, you start to forget.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately,
so if you're over 40, they give you the 5th grade one, or something like that.
The disappointing thing with much of this, and it's not just science specifically, but that's a big part of it for me at least, is that this is stuff that I had in high school and college. Mm-hmm. And when I was in it, it wasn't what I was really interested in at the time for a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And so I learned it, I passed the tests, I still retained some of it, but not nearly as much as I'd like. And so it's the years later, it's now that I'd really like to go back and understand a bit more about the math and the calculus that I took that I just had to take it before to pass.
Well, I think as an adult, we sort of appreciate the value of science and science education and logical thinking in answering the problems in the world and their solutions. And certainly, as an atheist, we appreciate those sorts of answers over and above religious answers to those same sorts of questions. Right?
Being able to make successful predictions, and science has been a tremendously successful method of doing that.
Yeah. So I think, we have a deep appreciation of that, and among other things.
Yeah.
So,
if any callers out there happen to know the answers of the closest planets to Earth,
What are the two closest planets to Earth?
and then also about the fog jump.
And if you need for us to repeat the question when you call up, we can do that.
Of course.
yeah.
All right. And while we're waiting for callers, you have a bunch of stories, I believe.
Yeah, I usually, bring a lot of material and things, but today I thought, we've had a lot of different news items having to do with religion lately, especially with the new Pope. There's been kind of a love fest of the old Pope, and people don't quite know what the deal is with the new one, and he's there's some pretty interesting stuff there. Maybe we'll just dive into it. Feel free to let me know if you have some comments and things. But the new guy is definitely a hardliner. He's wants to toe the line on all the Vatican stuff, and he doesn't care quite so much if he loses adherents, I think, or people backing off from it. So in fact, I think he was head of a group called let's see. What's the name of it? It's basically a branch of the Vatican that oversees the various sort of crimes against the papacy and keeping the integrity of the church, the sort of integrity of the teaching, that sort of thing. And I'm not jumping out at me right now.
And that was his job before. He was
right.
Second in command to...
Yeah, the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith is what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting is this used to be the old Inquisition got rolled up into this. So the Inquisition is alive and well, and part of this, and this new Pope was head of that for many years. While he was there, it's kind of hard to tease out who does what in the Vatican, right? Because they try very hard to speak with one voice and that sort of thing. But certainly he was definitely in the thick of things during the last 20, 30 years while he was there. And we have one of the things that's broken out in the last few years is this horrible pedophilia scandal, right? And the deal is that we've had a lot of priests who have abused children and abused their power relationship with the children in several ways, right? And being an adult child versus thing, which is bad in itself, but it's also as somebody of authority within the church abusing their power. And that sort of thing, and what they've tended to do over the last years is this has been simmering from at least the 50s, probably for as long as the church has been around. What they've tended to do is sweep it under the rug. In fact, there's a Vatican document that threatened to excommunicate bishops and other church officials who did not obey an oath of secrecy in reporting sex crimes, and this is from the '62. So this is sort of the position they took, and I find this really deplorable, and this sort of set the stage, I think. This is the Pope, or the Vatican issuing these decrees down to the various branches, saying that you can't talk about this, and you can't address it, and I think that and it's his office that did that, by the way, and in a sense that set into place a mindset that they don't want to deal with it. Well, they've tried to soft pedal it and say, well, this is only about people who, let's see, let me read this here. It was about instances of solicitation of sex during the sacrament of confession. So that was their claim, that this only had to do about that, and it didn't have to do with the greater scandal But it turns out that this document refers to sexual contact with brute animals, which has to do with bestiality, right? So it begs the question of, are animals coming in for confession? So their little story doesn't add up very well. So anyway,
with some of the strange things that the church has done in the past, animals were brought into confession.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess you can't abuse them. Or you can't talk about abuse if there's.
Again, it's strange things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So this whole festering thing is still going on. They're still stonewalling on investigations. They're still doing everything they can to avoid responsibility. The last pope claimed that he didn't know anything about it, when in actuality they had this decree, and this has been a big scandal for 40 years at least.
Now I know that this decree was actually set out. I believe I saw an article that says 2001 or thereabouts. It wasn't 2 weeks ago.
This decree that I mentioned was
Yes.
was from '62. So this is ancient history,
Okay.
or
So
it was a problem in the '60s. Let's put it that way.
Do we know of any improvements that could have come, given light of the more recent?
Well,
happenings?
I've written about this on my website, and the point I made there is that that they didn't really get into taking responsibility until there started to be lawsuits, and it was not.
So it's the money.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the money and the exposure that and isn't it ironic that 12-member juries can make the church do the right thing, but the God can't,
Yeah. Yeah.
And individual parish people, if they start not contributing money, then the church will take notice.
Yes, yeah, and that's a very good point. Is that people by their support of the church effectively aid and abet this, and I think that I've likened it in my little spiel to giving your alcoholic mother a drink. She sure wants a drink, and but you're not really helping her if you're doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this sex abuse scandal still goes on. None of the Vatican officials have been brought to justice. One of them has stepped down, Cardinal Loewe, and that's been the extent of it. So then they've sort of blamed the priests and said that they had nothing to do with it. But in actuality, they were moving people around, and very often they were repeat offenders and that sort of thing. And the number of victims is in the tens of thousands at least.
Wow.
And here's another little sad bit of news. The current pope shelved some claims that were done. He stifled some investigations, so that's not so good. A study puts priestly abuse at 4%. Okay, let me repeat that. The study puts priestly abuse at 4%. So 4% of the priests have been involved in scandals of some variety or another, and the report placed...
have been involved in scandals.
Yeah.
So basically that's the ones that we know about.
Yes. Let's see. So let's get to the numbers. Dioceses nationwide received 10,666 abuse claims since 1950, according to the study. Of those, 6,700 were substantiated. About 3,300 were not investigated because the accused clergymen were dead. So,
Wow.
that in itself bothers me, because that's basically saying, well, who cares? They're dead. Who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right?
What are we going to do about it?
Right. And I think that they also stop investigations too if the victim ends up committing suicide. So, because who cares?
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is pretty scandalous in my opinion that the numbers are that high.
And again, I'm assuming, as far as we know, those are the ones that we've been told about and have been reported.
I think that there. Well, one of the modes of operation was for the church or whatever to buy off the victims and have them swear that they wouldn't tell, and which is another sad thing. It sort of puts people, and also browbeat them about, God is going to get you if you tell on us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, if we pay you some money, everything will be right with God.
right.
Don't go causing trouble with God.
Right. So
Well,
so this,
that could also influence law enforcement officials.
oh yeah,
those kinds of arguments.
In fact, oh absolutely, and in fact, I think that that's going on because if any other group basically had a pedophilia racket as the churches had, they'd be shut down immediately and their assets seized under the RICO laws, and that would be, and then there'd be a big trial, big investigation, and that's not how it's going.
Yeah.
How it's going is they're making claims. Well, they've actually followed some of the dioceses in the United States have filed lawsuits saying that because of separation of church and state, we don't have to obey the laws. We're not subject to the laws of the state.
I don't think that's what they meant by separation of church and state.
That's not what they meant.
Just a wild guess, but I don't think that's what they were talking about.
So yeah. Anyway, so this thing is ongoing, and this particular pope, I really doubt is going to be getting to the bottom of it. I really think that it's going to be business as usual on that issue.
Yeah. Well, the problem that I've seen with him is he's very, very conservative, as opposed to John Paul, who was also, relatively speaking, conservative, but not too outrageous. This pope is saying that we have to get back to basics. We have to get back to fundamentals. We have to do away with all this nonsense about gay marriage and all these, evil heathen things.
He's described homosexuality
in English. What's up with that?
Right. All these important life-shattering things. Yeah.
Exactly. So we have to get back to core basics, and that's. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I think the two choices are, one, it's going to create some kind of revival in terms of you're getting back to the true religion. But I think more likely what's going to happen is too many people are going to say, no, this doesn't really fit with where the world is today.
Well, religions have this sort of terrible problem where they're stuck in the past with their holy books, right?
Yeah.
They're stuck in 2,000 plus years ago.
It's very hard to progress when
that's your basis. And a lot of it's just silly by today's standards, in both morally and scientifically and all that. But at the same time, they want to go out and get new adherents and new people. So there's always this struggle between holding on to the thing that they claim is their source of their contact with God, whatever. All right, the Bible, they've elevated the Bible to that sort of thing, versus pulling in new people. So that's, I think, a problem with religion, dogma at all. So and so he's pushing the other direction, right, to go more for the dogma and such. So. The guy is also kind of interesting in that he used to be a Nazi youth member, so that's a pretty interesting thing. Now, I don't fault him for that. He I guess in his teen years was drafted into the Nazi youth, and that was something that they kind of did conscripted everybody into the Nazi youth. So,
because I know we had on our email list some discussions like, the new pope is here, and so on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're having some technical issues
we're a little
here.
distracted
Our screen is not updating, so, all right.
Okay.
Okay, anyway.
So he joined the Hitler Youth
Exactly.
when he was 14. At the beginning of World War II, and deserted in 1944, and by this time, I think that the war pretty much petered out. I guess it was 45 when it ended. So he did jump out a little early.
Yeah, he did get out of it, and while he was in the Hitler Youth, I don't think that's really a big issue because basically all youths work. It was kind of a mandatory
Yes,
program.
there actually were some
So-
people who sidestepped it and didn't get involved with it, but it was difficult to do that. So
Yeah, it was a difficult thing. It's something where you have to go through some pretty serious hoops to get out of that, basically.
Right.
And
right.
so the fact that he didn't go through extraordinary measures to get out of something, which is pretty much mandatory,
Right.
can't fault him too much for that.
Right. So, yeah, so he claims that, yeah, resistance was possible, and then, but you know, there's kind of a long history with the Catholic Church and the Nazis. There's a lot of parallels. In fact, I claim that the Nazi movement and the Catholic Church are kind of two peas in a pod in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Both of them went out and persecuted Jews, right? We have you know, the Nazis with their concentration camps and all their horrible tortures. We were talking about that at in our meeting today with some of the folks.
Yeah.
And of course the Catholic Church with their Inquisition was bad news. Burning of witches, that sort of thing. Both groups needed the gullibility of people to give them power. Both groups, you know, the Nazis, you know, it was a movement very much like the movement going on today, the conservatism, where people are just sort of buying into it without thinking too much. So both. And certainly, you know, free thought is not encouraged by the Vatican by any means. Both of them had a breeding and indoctrination program. So let's see, the Nazis, you know, they were trying to create an Aryan race, and anybody who wasn't Aryan was considered, you know, an inferior genetic. And the whole Nazi youth thing was to indoctrinate the youth into the Nazi movement. And you know, the Vatican is very much orchestrating a breeding program. They're very much against condoms. They're very much against homosexuality. They are very much for indoctrinating youth into the Catholic Church. Both of them hate homosexuals.
Yeah.
So they just got a little bit different spin on them, you know. So you know, Hitler was a Catholic, claimed to be a Catholic, and was never excommunicated. So,
Yeah. Okay. And
Anyway.
if that doesn't do it,
if that
we don't know what
piss
will.
some people off. Anyway, so that's all I want to say on that. So,
Okay.
and this Ratzinger guy, I think that you know, this. I saw one quote that's claimed, well, his solution to political totalitarianism is religious totalitarianism. He didn't really learn anything from his experience with the Nazis.
Such a better option.
Yeah.
So-
Anyway, so that's, I think, all I want to yammer about. Maybe we can take some callers.
All right.
I've got some other news stories if things slow down.
Okay, if we need the time. Again, we are live today. It is April 24th, and we're talking about science education, though we've been off of that for a little bit.
Yeah, we've been off of that a little bit.
But we are going to try and get back on topic. So let's go ahead and take our caller really quick. And again, phone number's on your screen. If you've got any questions or comments, please go ahead and use it. First caller, we have Bill. You there?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I have a daughter, and her name is Kylie, and she is an atheist. And
Okay.
at my school, which she goes to, her teacher has been trying to convert her to a religion, because they're going through the Earth unit, like of how it was created, and
Okay.
so she's been trying to convert her, like, and all the students in the classroom, like, giving her opinion on it, and she's been trying to convert her to her religion.
Okay.
So the teacher is trying to do this?
Yes.
How old is your daughter?
Yeah.
She's 12.
Okay. So what, about fifth grade or thereabouts?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And what kind of?
What kinds of things are being said?
Yeah.
Oh,
Tell us more.
well, they were talking about, like, the Big Bang Theory and all this stuff, but she told me that the teacher said, oh, and she's actually in 6th grade, and she said that the teacher was like, well, the Earth, well, I don't believe in this Big Bang Theory. See, I'm a Christian, and then she starts talking about her religion, and all the kids ask a question, and then they're like, no, I believe in something else, and then she's like, no, my religion is real, and it
Yeah.
just makes me really upset.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something where, again, that certainly not the time or place for that. I would suggest definitely going to the school board and
raising a complaint,
and at least some of the higher ups in the school and raising complaints there. Again, there's time and place for those type of things, and science class is not the place for it.
Write a letter. Write a simple letter just to make sure that it gets reported to the principal and the school district superiors.
Exactly.
And I know there's like a separation of Birch and State.
Birch and State?
Oh, sorry, Church.
So,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
What you're describing would be illegal.
yeah. And I assume this is a public
Would be
school.
disallowed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Private schools, they're more or less off the hook. They can say things like that if they want, which is also, again, not good. But there's no laws specifically about that. Now, in terms of public schools, that's a big no-no. So.
And she says that her teacher wears like this suggestive clothing to school all the time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and let you go now. But thanks a lot for calling in.
BDD.
All right. Yeah, again, I haven't heard too much of that going on. But again, if anybody out there actually has anything realistic, and if that is actually true, please go ahead and report something like that. Again, we need to teach kids actual science. And I'm sorry.
I've heard of that sort of thing going on in very small towns in Texas. I've never heard of that in Austin.
Okay. Yeah, we would like actual scientists to try and lay out what should and shouldn't be taught, and not religious.
Well, one way to really do that is to why have one teacher stick their neck out against the law? Why not censor the textbooks? And there's actually a move going on to do that right now, and maybe this is a good time to talk about that. We do have a number up. We're talking about science education today. Give us a call, talking about atheism in general. If you have questions, let us know. There are two bills right now in committee in the Texas State Legislature, and they're going to be hearing, the House Public Education Committee will be hearing a testimony on Tuesday, April 26th, on two bills. And let me give you a little bit of history of these bills. They have to do with the State Board of Education and what they can do about textbooks. You see, there's a formal review process in Texas where the textbooks come in, and people get a chance to talk about them and give testimony as to whether they're good or bad, that sort of thing. And members of our group have participated in multiple years of this testimony, trying to make sure that the books are accurate and that sort of thing. And I think that's part of the reason why Mark's here today. In 1995, things got so bad with the State Board of Education, with them mucking with the textbooks based on their views and thoughts, that the state legislature passed a law saying that they couldn't change the content of the books. They could only earmark them for accuracy and address accuracy issues, and that tied the hands of the State Board of Education. And so now there are some bills being considered to reverse that. House Bill 2534, which was proposed by Representative Warren Chisholm from Pampa, Republican from Pampa, allows the State Board of Education to determine the content requirements and limitations for facts and discussions about theories. This includes the theory of evolution, citizenship, patriotism, and free enterprise, and divergent individuals and groups. So the way it's quoted is, it may not encourage lifestyles that deviate from generally accepted standards of society. So the idea is that that this bill would allow State Board of Education members to beat on those deviates, whatever those are. If you're not, presumably, if you're not a Christian, you're a deviant. Right?
Yeah, if you're not just like everybody else,
not just like everybody else,
perfectly normal, then there's a problem.
So this is pretty clearly going to beat up on the homosexuals. This bill would set into law the kind of textbook censorship that Texas Freedom Network, this is where I got the news release from, has fought before the State Board of Education for the last 10 years. There's another one, very similar thing. let's see, the House Bill 220 by Representative Charlie Howard of Sugar Land, another Republican, would give the State Board of Education the authority to reject a textbook or require its revision simply because the book did not conform to the political or religious beliefs of the State Board of Education members. So they can, it basically puts things back to where it was before, where they can go in and muck with the textbooks, and they do like to muck with the textbooks. I can swear to that.
Did I hear you right that simply because the book did not conform to the political or religious beliefs of school board members?
Well, so that's the effect of it. That's not what it says, right? I'm sure they've soft-pedaled what it says.
So could we theoretically get a whole bunch of very liberal Hindus onto the board, and then have their own little creation story become the science and political norm?
I mean, one of the things that they've gotten
hard to do in Sugar Land, Texas, but hey, we can try.
Yeah, I mean, even with the restrictive laws, the State Board of Education has gotten wording changed from like the Earth has existed for millions and millions of years to was formed a long time ago, sort of thing. So to make the creationists happy. That's the sort of thing we're talking about. And I guess this last year, Terry Leo, who's one of the Board of Education members, very conservative Christian. Got a bunch of wording in having to do with marriage, and
being a man and a woman, very specifically,
So. Anyway, so this is going on. They are looking for people to come testify. So if you're interested in doing that, that'd be a good thing to do. The Texas Freedom Network is spearheading that. They're doing a great job of monitoring the
we have worked with
State Board of Education.
The ACI has worked with them in the past on textbooks and such, and they've definitely been a good group doing some work on that.
So these are definitely bad news.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and take some callers now. Again, we're live today. It's April 24th, so if you've got any questions or comments, please go ahead and use that phone number. Let's go on to Steve. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, what's up first?
I have a problem with the way science is taught. I think but there's probably some wonderful exceptions out there, but I think instead of being taught as a process by which humans have learned how to figure out what the truth is, and it's more, here's the facts.
Yeah.
Here's what you're supposed to know.
Yeah.
And as long as it's like that, there will be people who want to be in control of what the facts are that everyone's going to be learning. And it has got very little to do with what I think science really is all about. And but that
becomes a dogma to itself, right? And that's not what science is about.
I don't know what to do to cure this, because it's a really kind of fundamental thing that most people think when they go to school. You learn and you get the answers and then you pass the test.
Yeah.
I think some of your questions from the tax test, the one about the planets,
Let's go ahead and answer it.
The orbits of the planets are, in a certain order.
Yeah.
But what does that say about the distance of where we are from those planets?
Shall we post that again for the benefit of the other viewers?
Let's go ahead and put that up on the screen again.
If I were going to answer a question from my knowledge that I learned in science, I would say, if the question were, which orbit of the planets is closest to the orbit of the planets of the Earth, I would say the answer was Venus and Mars.
Mm-hmm.
If the question was stated, which planet is actually closest to the Earth, I don't think I was ever taught exactly the distance from the Earth
you have to plot the orbits and figure out where they are, right?
The orbit necessarily determines it. So it's a very imprecisely worded question, and it implies a lack of actual understanding of what's going on by the question designer. If they were reworded, I think I could handle it.
I think that's a very good criticism.
I know why you would put that up there, because I think
it's a good criticism.
Kind of bogus.
Maybe Mark has some other issues about it.
There's the question again, and shall we give the state's answer and so on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the question again, as it appeared on the test, is stated there: which two planets are closest to Earth? And at the time that the test was given, the planet closest to Earth was Mercury, and the planet next most closest to Earth was Mars.
So combo A and C.
And that's not on the list.
That's not listed as an answer.
And it's because of this very
Well,
issue
don't
that
you
the caller
agree
raised,
that what they
right?
were trying to ask was something about the order of the orbits of the planets, and that they were trying to get Venus and Mars is probably the quote right answer. But it's true according to the question.
The state claimed that D, Venus and Mars, was the correct answer, even though they acknowledge that Mercury was closer to Earth than the other two planets. They still maintain that D was the correct answer, and that the question was fair for all students who took the test.
Well, I'm going to almost agree with them, not because they got anywhere near the actual truth of what's actually out there in the universe, but because most people are taught an ordering of the orbits of the planets, and most people fairly will get D as the right answer. If we're talking about just fairness on a contest, like the Family Feud or something, well then, okay, I guess they have a certain legitimacy there. As far as actual facts, and what bugs me is that science is not at all about facts. I think that they should remove the word facts from science education.
Yeah.
If they could do that, I think they'd really be doing something. If they could just
So
go,
your claim is about
our
observations and
idea is going on,
inferences?
and here's the backup for it, and there's very, very, very strong belief and strong evidence, I guess, that certain things are true and false, but that we're still looking at everything, and as new things come up and we understand more and more, all of this is subject to change, and that science is not a facts.
Yeah. And I think going back to the testing, the problem that I have issue with mostly is you were saying that they said this question is fair for all.
Well, I can tell you the
For all
mindset of that.
people who
I
take
can
the
explain
test.
the mindset of that, and that is that it's fair in the sense that everybody was given the same question. and
I'll tell you what, the person who will lose on this is some kid who's a true scientist,
Exactly.
who really understands and actually knows what's going on.
Yeah.
He might get that wrong, or just say none of the above.
he'd be penalized.
And
Actually, a
everybody
kid that
else who's
smart
really
will know how to
wrong
work the
is
test.
going to get it right.
Yeah.
Well, not only was the state's answer factually wrong, but it was worse than another answer that was listed. And among the roughly 300,000 kids who took the test, I'm sure that there were some who could easily have figured out that Mercury is most likely to be closest to Earth, not Venus or Mars. And there's perhaps a few kids who might have astronomy buff fathers or mothers, and they might have actually known at the time where the planets were and which ones were closest to Earth.
Yeah. And so while as a general question for 90% of the people who answered it, I think it's poorly worded, but that D answer of Mars and Venus was a valid answer.
If anything is part of one of these tests, it's precision of language.
Exactly.
Poorly worded is not an excuse.
Oh, and
you're asking students to understand very precisely worded questions. Poorly worded questions should not exist in this kind of thing.
Steve, thanks for mentioning that. Actually, in the Education Life supplement of today's New York Times, there's an article that includes just this question and another question from the 11th grade science tax test from 2 years ago, and some questions from other states. That's today's edition of the New York Times, the Education Life supplement.
I'll have to check that out. Anyway, I'll let the other question go for somebody else. I don't think I'm smart enough to have anything to say about it.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot for calling.
That's my 2 cents worth.
Okay, thanks. All right. I mean, again, going back to that, I can see how it would be a poorly worded, but for 90% of the people who are taking it, they understand the point of it.
Well,
therefore it'd be right.
What I'm concerned about is that the Texas Education Agency is reluctant to admit that they made a mistake and to nullify that question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's factually wrong, and it's certainly not fair for all students who took the test, but yet they are
Because they
dragging their feet on admitting that it's a faulty question.
Yeah, because if the students take into account that the planets do orbit, and so obviously if it's on the far side of the sun, it's going to be farther away from us than other planets.
That's true.
And so while a third grade student may not take that into account or realize it or that type of thing, or at least not always think about that, a 12th grade student should realize those kind of things and should realize that this question is either poorly worded or I'm not too sure what the answer is because I'm not an astronomy buff and I haven't bothered to check our solar system status in the last week.
That's right. No kid could be expected to know
to
where
keep
the
up with
positions
that.
of the planets are.
Exactly.
Right.
So, all right, let's go on really quick. What was the other question?
Oh, yeah.
That was on. And
if
again,
we could post that.
Callers.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get the second
I
question.
imagine
Well,
we're going to have
perhaps we
much
can wait
fewer
for a
people who
caller.
will hazard an answer to that one.
Perhaps we could wait for a caller to propose an answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and take some, or did you have something that you wanted to go on to right now, or?
No.
Okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and take some callers and see what we got. Let's see, I think we have Kylie. You there? Whoa. We do not have Kylie there.
Okay.
All right, let's go on instead to Mike. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, what you got for us?
Well, I want to answer your questions. I don't know the answer to that Frog Newton or Fig Newton question, but
Frog, okay.
well, whatever. But as far as you're talking about the semantics of that, not that question that you have on the screen, the other one.
Yeah, the
What
planets.
happens is, this is the reason I was supposed to be pretty smart when I was a kid. I was very smart when I got into things like this. So coming into semantical, hitting a wall, like when you had a question like that, I would have sat there with that test and I would have said, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make, are you saying which planets are we close to at the moment? Or which planets are their orbits are closer? And the teacher would have said, just answer the question, don't
I know.
rock the boat. And I would have gotten, eventually I just got frustrated with school, left, just kept on working in restaurants for the rest of my life, became a nobody.
Yeah.
So this is another thing, for instance, it reminds me of a question I used to ask myself. Are you virtually, when you merge onto a highway, so you're in the highway's on your left, you're merging onto it, should you put your left blinker or your right blinker on? Because technically you're taking a right turn.
I've wondered about that.
But when you, but if you did that, people would say, what do you got your right blinker on? But I'm not on the highway yet, so how can I possibly check
Is it a lane change or is it a right turn? Yeah.
So that's the kind of question, if you get too crazy,
That's one for driver's ed.
what'd you say?
That's one for driver's ed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
One of those imponderable questions. Yep. Okay.
But back to when we're talking, my general question I call this, I'm trying to get my problem across. I'm trying to say that this religious movement, this building, I think it was last week or the week before, somebody was talking about Dominionists.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, scary
Yes.
stuff.
And I was saying that until you get a name for put a face and teeth and a name and a hat and a coat on the uniform on the enemy, you have to go on yourself. So when you bring up the issue with people who are, for the most part, Americans are lazy and disinterested and tired and lethargic, and I don't want to talk about that. I don't care as long as I get my Budweiser light and I get, so, but everybody I know, virtually everybody I come in contact with, nobody, a small percentage even care about this, and I care about it deeply.
Yeah.
So if you just start talking about anything, if you use the word conspiracy or if you use the word religious right there, I don't want to talk about the religious right.
Well, one of the challenges with this Dominionism is it's so far out that people think you're nuts even talking about it. It's like, you got to be kidding. Hey, are there people that really believe this stuff, that if you destroy the earth, Jesus will come back, or that it's God's plan for the U.S. to take over other countries and make them into Christian nations, just like the U.S. supposedly is? It's like, they'll think you're nuts even bringing the subject up. But yes, there are groups doing this.
And the dangerous thing is that there are groups doing this.
And Tom DeLay's a Dominionist, they're in power.
And because people think that it's so ridiculous and so far out, they don't do anything against it. And that's the problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like we got an education problem here that we don't even, most people don't even realize they exist, and don't realize that yes, they're pretty powerful and they're pretty wacko.
So they're moving, and they don't have all that much opposition, at least not enough.
Yeah.
It's basically a subject of just amusement, like if you watch Jay Leno when he does this thing called jaywalking, and he asks people, I know it's California and everything, but he's asking people questions like,
Man on the street sort of thing?
Yeah. How many moons does the Earth have? And I swear this woman was just... It's just my job to be beautiful. Two?
I actually did this when I was in college. Actually, I was up in Pennsylvania, and to this day, I still don't know. I'm sure I got one or two joke answers in it, but even without that, I had heard about these problems with education, showing that people can't find America on a map, and crazy things like that. And so I basically, for one of my health tests, they said you had to come up with some kind of presentation. And so I was thinking about doing this. So I came up with a quick 2-page test. And on one page, I tried to cover everything. And so I had very, very basic questions. I mean, a very simple algebra question. 2 plus x equals 16. What is x? Stuff like that. From English, from math, from history. And then on the back page, I had a world map that wasn't labeled, and I had a couple of the continents underlined, and it was just an underline saying, name this continent and here are your choices. And it wasn't things like, find this small little, New Guinea on the map that you don't hear about all that often. It's like, find Africa. find the American continent. It's not these tiny little countries that you never heard of. And while a vast majority of them had it right, there were still some where they had Africa labeled in the American slot. And just blatant things that were wrong.
Well, the United States is kind of an isolationist sort of nation. We don't really give a hoot about the rest of the world. So geography is not important at all, right?
We're victims of our own corpulence and wealth, and
exactly.
We're saturated with our own freedom to the point that we just figure it's going to keep coming like oxygen. And I mean, literally, this until I want to change things. I want people to wake up and realize this is a stupid deal. I've even divided Christians into two groups: hate Christians and love Christians. And that's why I'm forever going to say, you're a hate Christian or you're a love Christian, one or the other. And then that way I can say, hey, yeah, you're a Christian, all right, just a hateful one. I'm going to call it HXs and LXs, or something. But see, I think that's if you got to put a name and a label on something, people know you mean business.
Yeah.
They know you've got some kind of game. You've got some of the public relations.
This is organized.
And so until that happens, I mean, you said something earlier about Texas Freedom, something.
Yeah, there's a group here in Austin called the Texas Freedom Network, and they monitor a bunch of issues, and education is one of them. Child Protective Services is another. Stem cell research is another. There's about 4 or 5 issues that they monitor and try to kind of educate folks as to the sort of religious agendas that are going on and the sort of bad things that are happening in these areas.
Well, see, that's a good start. That was the first name of any group that I've heard, and not to give me a handle of something I can throw around besides us and them.
Yeah. Well, I recommend checking out their website, and you can sign up for what they call action alerts, which they give you little feeds every day of a bunch of articles on the various topics, and so they provide a really wonderful service there. But they also are very organized in challenging the bad textbooks and things like sex education. They're very much for sex education, that sort of thing.
So that website for
TFN.org,
TexasFreedomNetwork.org. Okay, I'm going to get off and let somebody else talk.
Okay. Thanks a lot for calling.
Yeah, they're a good group. We do some work with them. We have very kind of similar views.
It's mostly been in textbooks in the past, but they have a lot of things that they're into, and definitely a worthwhile organization, no doubt. So, all right, let's go on to 1 or 2 more quick callers, and again, we're trying to get that second question answered about those frogs.
Shall we post that question again?
Should we post the question one more time?
Yeah, let's go ahead and try and get that question up one more time. And while we do that, let's go ahead and take a caller in front of us. Let's see. Do we have Sarah? You there?
Hello?
Hey.
Hi, I'm just wondering, what do you guys believe in, atheists?
One quick note, if your TV is on in the background or something, just go ahead and either mute it or turn it off. We're getting a little feedback. Apart from that, atheism is lack of belief in a God. That's it. Nothing more to atheism itself. Now, a lot of us have some similar beliefs in outside areas, as in general belief in the process of science. The modern scientific theories that are out there are probably a better choice of things to put your eggs in.
I don't know if I call that a belief, but I'd say...
Yeah, I don't know if it would be a belief, but it would be our trust level, I guess.
Right. We're basically skeptics.
Yes.
Is we want evidence and we want good reasons for buying into something, and we don't see any good reasons for belief in gods, so we don't believe in gods.
Yeah.
I prefer to put my faith in predictions of science, because predictions of science are basically statements of evidence of past trials, and that's basically the scientific method. A prediction of science in its most basic form is a statement of what has resulted on all previously known trials.
Mm-hmm.
And there are ways of summarizing predictions of science by giving average values and things like that. But in essence, in order to make a prediction of science, you have to have some evidence.
Yeah.
And the more evidence you have, well, you include all that evidence in your prediction.
So, 3 atheists, 3 different answers.
So I hope we got your question answered.
Yeah, did you have anything else for us? Or are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any other questions?
No.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling. All right. Okay, let's see. Let's go on to one more caller. We have got Lelia on the line.
Yeah, it's Layla. Hey, what's
Lelia.
up?
Hi.
Yeah, I've been watching y'all a couple weeks. I'm not an atheist, but I'm very open-minded. And I have a couple things to say, different subjects. First of all, you're right about the Dominion theory thing. It has been going on for quite some time. I noticed it immediately after 9/11. In fact, I thought 9/11 had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And it is true also that people who think it's so outrageous are going to just make it continue to happen. It's the same thing that happened during Hitler's time, right?
Okay.
People thought, oh, the concentrations aren't really happening, people
how
are
can
fine.
they be
And
killing
then,
so many people? It's just mind-boggling, right?
Right. So in that sense, it's really good you guys are talking about it. Hopefully people are listening. On the other hand, I wanted to talk to you about one quick thing about the abortion thing y'all talked about a couple weeks ago. If you put that aside as far as religious and just not even worry about the religious factor, if you look at it for those of us who are against it, because simply, like myself, my mother turned around one day and said, I should have had an abortion. I would have maybe been able to go off and do some other fun stuff instead of being pregnant for a while. And then I look at myself, I speak 7 languages, I play 17 instruments, I've done a lot with my life, and I think if that stupid woman had just made that decision, where would I be today?
Yeah.
So if you look at it in that sense, that there's a lot of really, really dumb people out there getting pregnant when they shouldn't be, and then when they have that abortion, that kid could have been something special, even if it started out being just a cell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, some people's view on abortion is not strictly religious, even though I am a Christian.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Then the third question is for the scientist guy there. Now, you were saying science has proven itself over and over again, and it's something I guess you're saying that you can look at with whatever you want to say, facts or whatever. On the quantum physics level, with quantum mechanics, and I know you guys have talked about quantum mechanics on this show before, with things appearing and reappearing and things changing constantly, there really is, no rules or laws left that we can point to and say it's going to, for sure, 100% react this way, right? Because it can change.
It depends on what kind of thing you're using quantum mechanics to predict. There are some kinds of measurements in quantum mechanics where all you can state with good confidence are the statistics for whether the spin, say, of a little particle were pointed up along some axis or down along that axis.
Yeah, but quantum mechanics is appropriate for things on a very, very small scale.
Exactly.
Right?
But you can prepare beams of little particles to have all their spins that will give an up value along a particular axis. On the other hand, you can prepare other beams of the same kind of particles such that, but then if you measure the spin of that particle, all of whose spins are oriented upwards along a horizontal axis, you'll usually find that there's a 50-50 likelihood that the spin will be pointed either this way or that way along the horizontal axis. And you can't say for sure in advance which particle that had an up spin will take this value or that value. That's not predictable, but the statistics are 50% that way and 50% that way out of a large number of measurements.
Right, which brings me to this part about it. Have you ever had an experiment with quantum physics where you were observing something and you consciously tried to make it go a different direction?
I've never tried to do that.
Have you heard of that Japanese guy that now it's in that big movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? But I'd read about him years and years ago where he put out a book about he's a scientist, and he put out a book about doing experiments with water molecules and how he'd label them and then think about them.
That's a major crock.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, that whole thing was a major crock.
Did you not believe in that?
No, he made some money on it, and that was the gist of it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be honest, I didn't research the guy, but I know a lot of different experiments in that realm where people have said that quantum physics is basically proof that you can interject spiritually into it, right?
There's this idea that the universe at very small scales is probabilistic in nature. This quantum mechanics. So there's not like
it's indeterministic.
Indeterministic, right? And then they're taking that and they're saying, oh well, reality is subjective. Anything that I want reality to do, that's how it is, and that's kind of a new agey
right, the God is within me and I can create my own reality.
Right.
And that's what I want to ask is, what do you guys think about that? I mean, as atheists, how do you feel about the fact that some people believe they have their own God power and they are their own God? Have y'all, because, atheists are supposed to experiment with everything, right? Look into everything and maybe accept whatever they want to accept out of it.
Well, that's not exactly true.
If someone makes that claim, I'd ask them, do you eat?
The actual issue.
And where'd you go with that then?
Well, if they create their own reality, they shouldn't have to eat, right? They can say, well,
their reality is created based on they want to eat. See, I mean, that's just a whole other direction you can take things, and I just was interested in knowing what you guys thought about that,
The actual situation, it's not so much that we have to look into everything and decide. I mean, we are not the final arbiters of what is right and wrong.
You're just undecided.
And so basically somebody has made a claim that they can, at a certain level, control the world with their mind.
Right, exactly.
Through quantum mechanics. I have yet to see any form of credible evidence that they can actually do
make a stronger,
anything
We can make a stronger claim than that, Ashley. We've got James Randi Foundation, JRF.org, that they have a reward of $1 million if you are able to prove a claim of the paranormal, and I think that altering reality is certainly up there.
I think that'd be cool to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Well, because on that level, you could look at Jesus as a scientist versus a prophet. You could look at him as changing things at that quantum level.
But the problem here is
that way.
Yeah.
But the problem here is that basically it's a level of reality that we haven't explored and fully explained yet.
Right.
And so the New Agers come in and say, aha, we don't know everything. Therefore, your mind can affect it, and we can control reality, and you can affect how the water's going to fall and whether you get more marbles going to this side than that side in an experiment and things like that.
I think some of them have actually done it because they've experienced it.
Yeah, but again, there is no mechanism by which this could work that we have ever discovered. There is no actual tests that have been done that show that this actually works.
Well, that's considering that you're saying the Japanese guy was wacko, but if he really was doing what he said he was
he took pictures of water crystals and he prayed to them, or he did whatever, influence on them.
And this is more than just that one guy. This is over hundreds of thousands of different texts.
There's no evidence of cause and effect in those pictures.
And they're all welcome to go after the $1 million reward that James Randi has put up.
I'm going to go after it.
Right.
But anyway, you guys are fun. I mean, I just like watching you because at least you ask questions and make people think. But I've asked all the questions I needed in all my years, and I've ended up a Christian, but not the way they do it here. I actually read the Bible in different languages and took from it what was supposed to be gotten from it, in my opinion. But anyway, thanks for talking to me.
Okay. We enjoyed your call.
Thanks.
All right.
She was referring to a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? And it's an interesting movie, the way it was actually made by a group of folks who were kind of followers of a particular New Agey sort of movement, and they had some money, so they made a movie. And the movie's pretty good, but they have all these talking head experts talking, and turns out later you find out some of them are chiropractors, and they're talking about the nature of reality. And it's like, well, another one ends up channeling somebody who's like 10,000 years old or something, and part of the movie it's a very interesting movie. It's very well made, and they talk about this guy and his photographs of the ice crystals that he's expressed love to or hate to, and they look all contorted when they're hated, and all this stuff, and he's like I said, he's made some money on it. Good for him. And anyway, so the whole thing's a head scratcher. The whole movie's a head scratcher, but the premise is if we don't understand what reality is, reality must be subjective, and we can control it. Is the gist of it?
And no, that's not at all true. Years and years ago, we did not understand how the planets actually worked, how stars worked, how gravity worked, how lightning worked, how electricity worked. That doesn't mean it's subjective, and your mind can therefore control it. If you believe that, grab a fork and a light socket. Ain't gonna work.
Okay.
You can't control things like that. There are rules that the universe follows. And so just because we don't understand it doesn't mean you can control it. The only thing that means is we don't understand it.
So did either of you guys see that movie? Did you?
No.
Okay.
I have heard about it, though.
But there's a book that I'd like to read, a new book by a guy named Roger Penrose. He's a knighted mathematical physicist in Britain.
I've met him.
And
a brilliant man.
It's the book is titled Road to Reality, a complete guide to the laws of the universe.
All right.
So, I mean, he's obviously being a little out there with the title, but it seems to cover, I paged through it, it seems to cover everything from basic geometry and numbers to highfalutin theories in mathematical physics.
Cool.
And apparently he spent 7 or 8 years on it. So that's a long amount of time.
Yeah. Okay. He's one of the more brilliant minds out there. He's definitely a sharp guy. Did a lot of the math that's being used in some of the more advanced physics theories, right? Is that right, Mark? Or
well, he is his main area is cosmology, a very mathematical area of how things having to do with black holes and big bangs and things like that. And he worked together with Hawking. He's a good friend of Hawking, colleague. And
Okay.
All right. Okay, before we go on to our next callers, a quick note to say that we have been going out to dinner after the show, and I forgot to mention that earlier. But we are doing that again this week. We're going to be going out to Chili's on the southeast corner of I-35 and 183 after the show. We are on until 6 o'clock for about the next 20 minutes or so, and we'll be at the restaurant around about 6:40, 6:45. So again, atheist-friendly people, if you want to come down and meet some of us, you are more than welcome to come down and check us out there and have some burgers and fries.
And we'll have our crew and the folks here. We have a whole mess of folks here today that you can come down and meet. So
yeah, it's usually quite a few of us down there. It's been a good turnout. It's been a lot of fun. So if you want to come down and meet us, please do so. All right, let's go ahead and take one or two more callers.
Oh, should we give the answer?
Do we want to talk about the question?
We could post the question again, and I could give the answer. If I hope no callers wanted to call in, and
yeah, well, go ahead and let's figure out what the frog is doing.
Okay.
The question: a frog of mass half a kilogram jumps with an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared. What is the force the frog exerts on the ground when jumping? That's the question. And the state of Texas, in their version of this question, said that the answer is 1.5 newtons. And the way they get that is by simply multiplying the mass of half a kilogram by the acceleration, 3 meters per second squared. So the numbers multiply to give 1.5. And the units, kilograms times meters per second squared, that happens to be a unit called the Newton. So they get the answer C.
So this is force times mass times acceleration. Is that the
Force
idea?
equals mass times acceleration.
Okay.
However, that answer is incorrect.
Okay.
And
Why is that?
I can show why that is if we go to a little close-up that we might be able to display.
And take the question off here.
Okay.
So we might have to zoom in. Okay, so let's orient ourselves. Let's say this is the frog. Well, now we're imagining that the frog accelerates in that direction with an acceleration of 3 meters per second squared, in which case, well, part of the force that the frog would have to exert on the ground would be directed in the opposite direction to the actual acceleration.
Okay, so there's an assumption in the question that the frog's jumping straight up and down, which is not necessarily true, right?
Well, you could multiply half a kilogram times 3 meters per second squared to get 1.5 newtons. However, this completely ignores the fact that you also have the force due to gravity acting on the frog, even when the frog is just sitting there. And that's equal to the frog's mass, half a kilogram, times the acceleration due to gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared. So that's already 4.9 newtons of force, even that the frog is exerting on the ground, even when the frog is just sitting there.
So he's not even going to get airborne with this.
So that's right. So if the frog were to jump straight up, then to the 4.9 newtons of force here, basically the frog's weight, if the frog were to accelerate straight up, then one would have to add to the force due to gravity, 4.9 newtons, the additional force of 1.5 newtons to get a total of 6.4 newtons of force exerted on the ground.
Okay.
If the frog was to jump at an angle, as is shown here, then the amount of force exerted on the ground is less than 6.4 newtons.
But more than 4.9.
Yes,
Okay.
if it were to jump above the horizontal, yes, more than 4.9. So the answer that falls well within that is well located within the range of possibilities is actually answer D, 6.0 newtons. So in this case, the state of Texas is just plain wrong, and again, they have denied that they are wrong. They have claimed that answer C is the correct answer. And they have said it is fair that is the correct answer for all students who took the test, which is just an absolute lie. It is a matter of either total incompetence on the part of people at the TA or their experts, or simple dishonesty.
Now, on something like this, could this be something where this was for 11th grade, I believe?
This was an 11th grade tax test, and that's the highest level
that
tax
we're going
test.
to do, basically.
Yes.
Now, I'm assuming that given their level of education, they should have known and should have been able to work it out with the force of gravity?
Of course, you mean the students.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a big thing in these physics problems to work out all the forces, to list all the forces and draw a diagram, just like you did.
Exactly, because if you start factoring other things like air resistance.
Kids already in the 9th and 10th grade take integrated physics and chemistry here in Texas, and they cover things like, simple things like Newton's laws and how gravity works. And by the way, on this test, at the beginning of the test, they gave all these formulas. They gave the value for the acceleration due to gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared. They gave the formula, force equals mass times acceleration. This is well within what is expected of the kids to know.
Okay.
But yet, the Texas Education Agency, they blundered, they made an error, and again they are failing to admit that they made the error.
So Mark, so they gave all the formulas at the beginning, and then they gave a little simple word problem where they're just supposed to plug in these two things, and they call this physics.
Well,
sad.
you gotta question what the Texas Education Agency is thinking in denying that they've made a mistake.
Yeah.
Do we know what kind of, how prevalent are these problems? Because going back to the first one, that one I can see as, which also brings up another point. Is this, in a sense, getting picky? In terms of being
certainly
exceedingly precise?
Certainly not on the 11th grade question, and there's also another 11th grade question that the Texas Education Agency got wrong. And initially, when I looked at the 2003 tests, I was interested. I knew that they would eventually be used to determine whether a kid would graduate from high school. So I wanted to look at the highest level science test. That was the 11th grade test from 2003, and I found a couple of mistakes, including this frog one. And then I was contacted by, so I wrote to the TEA, and later I was contacted by a science coordinator for one of the districts up in Dallas, and this person didn't want her name to become known because she feared some reprisal, and she said that the 5th grade test might have some problems, and she referred me to another problem on the 5th grade test other than the planets problem. And indeed she was correct. That one had more than one correct answer. And then while reading through the 5th grade test, I found this mistake on the planets problem.
Also, another thing that the article that you're referring to in the New York Times, the Education Life, many of the problems in there that they listed, and one of their key, talking points in there was many times in education today we have, it's not so much a question of you have a square and a line bisects it at such and such angle and these type of things. It's more like, okay, you have a soda straw inside your bottle of pop. At what angle is it projecting out or something like that? When you're dealing with real world situations like that, there are ambiguities that come up. If you're dealing with a rectangle and a line going through it, there's only one angle that line can go through, from corner to corner, for instance. If it's in a box, well, at what angle is it inside the box? Is it going corner to corner, edge to edge, that type of thing? Would these tests be better and more relevant if we took out the ambiguity of real life, in a sense, and just said, in a mathematical model, would that be a better way to do it? Or is it better to relate it back to real life, even if it adds ambiguity?
In teaching science, or in teaching math, I favor trying to teach them together with each other, and not necessarily as separate disciplines, because a kid who is maybe having trouble with the mathematical manipulations may be able to understand the problem from a more physical perspective,
and vice versa.
That's
a good idea. Yeah.
And I see no reason why these standardized test questions for big statewide tests cannot be developed carefully enough to make use of sort of real world situations rather than just plain things that are not related to the real world.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get a couple more callers. We've got about 10 minutes left on the air, so let's go on to, I believe we have Matt. You there?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi. What you got for us?
Yeah, Mark, you were just talking about this. I think that you just pretty much proved that science in conjunction with the public school system is flawed. Not science itself, but the public school system in particular, but the way that they're putting this stuff into kids' heads. I think it's a communist system. It's run by the government. Private schools are different.
I've gotten a bill prepared by the Texas Legislative Council, a progressive version of the voucher idea. And because I agree that in many places our government school monopoly is doing a miserable job in preparing people in mathematics and science. And I've also gotten a bill sponsored last session and was invited to testify. It was a bill that would allow children to permanently keep their math and science textbooks, as is the practice in the high-achieving Asian countries where the textbooks are extremely inexpensive, very low cost, and kids get to keep them permanently, so they develop a library at home of books, familiar books that they can review, and teachers can also expect that children will have ready home access to a full range of review material, and so teachers won't have to repeat a lot of information year after year after year.
Yeah, and I want to shift the gears. You guys were talking about mind over matter before. I firmly believe that that exists on a certain level because of psychosomatic disorders and the way that your mind can control directly the matter that it's attached to in the form of your body.
Okay.
Sure.
And I'm not really aware of that really extending too far out beyond the own person that's doing it. Also, I wanted to ask you guys are all atheists, right?
Yes.
Okay, have you studied, this might sound kind of arrogant, but have you studied every religion possible? Have you studied like Rosicrucianism? Have you studied the Kabbalah? Have you studied...
Not all of them, nope.
Not all of them. The general idea that a God exists, and again, I usually go with the typical definition of it's some kind of sentient, incorporeal being outside of ourselves that created the universe and watches over you and loves you. That I can just find issues with, and I haven't seen any evidence of that kind of being existing. Now, if some other religion wants to come up and say, here's my definition of God, or even this religion doesn't have a God, Buddhism, for instance, then we can talk about that one specifically. Buddhism, again, it doesn't have a God specifically. Buddha is not their God. So I can understand that. I don't have a big problem with that. Now, they also apply other things in that religion, though, which are questionable. Very often they'll believe in reincarnation, for instance. And that, again, haven't seen any evidence of it, don't know how it could possibly work, tend not to believe it. So
I believe, I'm a spiritualist, I guess you could say. I do believe that there is, you have a soul, and it is scientific, where you can quantify it. It is the impulses, all the transmissions that are going on through the body. You can't really separate the body from the spirit. They pretty much exist in certain dimensions on the same level in the same place. And
but the problem with that is just that spirit carries a lot of baggage with it because of its term.
Spirit, to me, like my definition of God right now, is it's all the energy in the universe that is promoting life. And that's like people used to worship the sun because there's a lot of really crazy science there that's happening between this planet and the sun and all the other planets. And I just think that my whole spiritual nature, I try to back it up with science and
do you
religion, because I find a lot of faults in both science and religion.
Do you distinguish your notion of spirit from how nature works?
No, that's the whole thing. It is nature, and a lot of stuff that people think is like paranormal or stuff. My whole thing is that science and magic are the same thing on a certain level. No, I'm serious, man. When people pull magic tricks, illusions on people, all it is, you can explain it with science. Like, this happened and this happened, and and
science or psychology.
What our overlords used to do is they used to say, like, the sun's going to be eaten by a snake if you don't do what I say, and then, like, the next day there's an eclipse because they've been actually paying attention to things that are happening.
Yeah.
And they fool everybody, and that's pretty much what's going on right now.
So you're saying magic is applied science, is what you're saying?
Hopefully those magician scientists are able to make are able to have a good record of successful predictions, unlike a lot of our current religionists.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They were just paying attention to things that were happening in the world around them, cosmically, and in our solar system, and they had, recorded this stuff and handed it down, and they were the ones that could read it. And I mean, that's what you got in our public school systems. They're not really trying to teach anybody. They're trying to make them dumb.
Well, a lot of people, well, it depends on the person. There are a lot of good teachers, but there are some who are not up to the task.
Yeah, I've been in public and private
and
schools.
our government monopoly school system is top-heavy in administration. A great deal of the funding goes towards administration and things that really don't have to do directly with teaching.
That's it. They could just be spending that money raising salaries, and maybe the teachers would do a better job.
Well, I agree we need to spend more money on the teachers' salaries and things, but the more accountability you have, the more overhead you have. So, there's a trade-off there, right?
Yeah, there's government, the people in the government, man, they're just rich, most of them, and they just give government contracts to their friends, and it's just a big, good old boy network, and they're all just patting each other on the back, giving them, the shaking hands.
There's a lot of corruption.
Yeah, I think that does go on, but I guess my view of government isn't that bad. It's certainly got its problems. It can certainly be improved here and there, but I don't think it's quite as
black and white.
Prevalent, black and white perhaps, as all of that. So.
Well, it's going on, and it's at an all-time high, I think, at this point, and it's always been going on, like you said, in certain. But I mean, is there really a choice between two different political parties for the president of the United States? Is that a choice?
Yeah, our two-party system is kind of flawed.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, and they've got the money, and they've got all the, that's what the news. What's the responsibility of the media?
Yeah.
The Fourth Estate is
not
doing its job.
These are all
good issues. Yeah.
Good important issues, which unfortunately we don't really have all that much time to cover. Did you have anything else for us quickly?
No, that'll do it, man. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks for calling.
Okay. Yeah, those are all very important issues that he brought up, and
unfortunately,
we could spend lots of time on those.
Yeah, they're a little bit outside of our scope, though. Okay, couple quick announcements before we go off the air really quick. The National Day of Prayer, one thing I forgot to mention on that. Again, that's going to be on May 5th on the south side of the Texas State Capitol building from 12 to 1. It's the counter rally against the National Day of Prayer sponsorship by the government. We are going to be out there, and we would like to have as many people as possible show up, including, and almost more importantly, if you are religious. Many times the government doesn't really listen to us as much as they should because, well, they're just the crank atheists. They don't represent the current people, the population. It's the mainstream Christians and religious people that are going to make the difference. If they're there saying that the government should not be promoting this, that's going to carry a little more weight with them.
Yeah, church-state separation works for everybody.
Exactly. It's to everybody's benefit, not just ours. Okay, that is that. Also, quickly, any atheist-friendly people who are watching, if you want to come down and meet us at Chili's on the southeast corner of I-35 and 183, we will be there in about 40 minutes or so. It's, again, today we're live. It's April 24th, and we're going off the air in about 1 minute. So if you want to join us, that's where we're going to be in a little while.
Right.
Thank you very much, Don, for coming on and helping out, as usual.
Thank you for our callers. We had some great callers, and Mark Loewe.
Yes. Yes, it is good to have you back in town.
It's my pleasure.
So thanks a lot for coming on and helping out, and we'll hope to see you around a bit more.
We'll do some exotic science perhaps in the future on the show.
Okay. All right.
Talk about 0-point energy. Man, that'll be good.
All right. Everybody have a great rest of the weekend, even though it is pretty much over, but hope it was a good one for you. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Austin, this is a great city, great viewers, great callers, and it's a good place to have it. So, again, we're all going to Chili's. Hope you can join us. And for everybody else, we will see you next week. If you have any questions or comments,